Stapitam yena bhutale Sayam rupa kadapmayam dadati swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Sri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sagatutam Barijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanusude Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhyeva cha patitanam pavanibhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Welcome, dear devotees. Thank you very much for joining on the auspicious occasion of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura's Divine Disappearance Day. It's also the Disappearance Day of Srila Gadadhar Pandit. And extra credit for turning your camera on. I speak at corporates, and it is like running into a wall when there's dark squares. But when I see your faces, then I get new life. So thank you very much, everyone. Um, yes, I should turn notifications off because I'm getting a lot of dings going on here. Sound default. None. Okay, good. So this is a special topic tonight because we are enriched by our association in the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, as we have an illustrious line of pure devotees whom we take shelter of. And there's no separation by generation, meaning that, as Prabhupada explained, when we have predecessor acharyas in our line and we serve them, we also have access to their association. In fact, Srila Prabhupada said that the grandfather, the grandparents, they're more liberal with their grandchildren. They give more mercy, special consideration than even the father or mother might do. And in a similar way, he's pointed out that the acharyas in our line, they show great mercy to their descendants. I mean, after all, even Krishna does that in the families of pure devotees for generations, forward and backward. He gives special consideration. But the reason I say it's a very special program tonight is because when we're given the opportunity to speak about the pure devotees of the Lord, then we become edified even more than speaking about the Lord directly. As evidence, when Lord Krishna went to Mithila to see Bahulashva and Shrutadev, after visiting Bahula, actually, he visited them simultaneously. When he got there, it appeared that he went to each house independently, but he went there simultaneously with all the sages who came along with him on his chariot. And the house of Balalashva. He was received as a king might receive someone with great opulence. Shrutadev was a poor brahmana. He waved his chadar, he gave a place to sit for everyone, some water. And he set out washing the lotus feet of Lord Krishna and sprinkling it on his heads of all his family members. And then he massaged the Lord's lotus feet, and he also glorified Lord Krishna. And in his effusive glorification of Lord Krishna perceived a fault, and he stopped Shrutadev from his glorification. He said, "Enough. Don't talk about me. These sages are in the room today. They're more important. Glorify them." For it's philosophically, as we know from Srimad Bhagavatam, Yudhishthira to Vidura, Bhavad Vida Bhagavatas Tirtha Bhuta Swayam Vibo Tirtha Kurvanti Tirtani Swantakstena Gadabrata. The pure devotee carries in his heart, her heart, something even more important than what we get from Krishna, because the pure devotee has Krishna prema within the heart. By the association of devotees, Mahatmanastamam Partha, Daivim Prakriti Mashrita, we can take shelter of the internal potency. So when we discuss the pure devotees and remember them, there's special potency in remembering them, glorifying them. And this is the true path to advancement in devotional service, is to serve the pure devotees. And of all the pure devotees, is my perception, or I should say, among all pure devotees, I found, and anyone can find through research, that Prabhupada was especially fond of and attached to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura. Of course, he was attached, was Srila Prabhupada, to his Guru Maharaj. But Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and his Guru Maharaj are practically inseparable, except in slight difference of mood. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was a householder until he became a Paramahamsa and put on Babaji Vesh. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was a Naishtika Brahmachari, which means he remained a brahmachari throughout his life, and then, of course, a sannyasi most of his life. And Srila Prabhupada pointed out that difference. He points that out in the purport. But the mission and the mood of pure devotional service was the same beyond the varnashram designation. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's vision of compassion was that he wanted to see all the people of the world dancing together in Sridham Mayapur and glorifying Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Who has such a vision? Most people are concerned with their own families or their own bank accounts. And not to say that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur wasn't diligent when it comes to that, as he was a householder with many children, over 10. He was also dutiful. He acted as a high court judge. He had other stations in life. But his prime occupation, amazingly, even as he was maintaining family and such a high position, was to write books about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's philosophy and about the Bhagavat. And his vision was that it should go all over the world. That vision is what his Shiksha disciple and son, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, inherited, and the mood of Yukta Vairagya. What would the movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu have been without this liberal-minded approach, which is incidentally, or not incidentally, which is most notably the mood of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Shukadeva Goswami says, Kirata hunandra pulinda pulakasha abhira shumba yavana kasadaya yene chapapa yarapashaya shaya shudyanti tasmai pravishnave namaha. Practically listing every kind of person who's out of touch with spirituality, and then saying they're all eligible. Most groups, human groups, religious or otherwise, when they form after some time, they start to close ranks. And there's a noticeable way in which you can only get God through a certain protocol. Michel's iron laws of oligarchy apply. Oftentimes, people become more stingy about giving out the divine sacraments. And the Srimad Bhagavatam has a different vision. The unrestricted distribution of Krishna consciousness, and of course, the pinnacle of that is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And the pure devotees of the Lord, their preoccupation is to make sure that everyone gets an opportunity to take to Krishna consciousness. This is the high level worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I mean, it's often quoted, and just today, David Rata Prabhu sent me an offering he had written to Bhaktivinoda Thakur this morning. And in it, he included the verse, Tapyante lokatapena sadhava prayasojana parama aradhanam taddi purushasya kilatmanaha. That the topmost devotees, or he says, does Sukadev, referring to Lord Shiva, who saved the universe out of compassion by drinking the poison that had been created by the churning of the milk ocean. He says, the parama aradhanam, the highest level of service, is to take suffering, tapyante, lokatapena, on behalf of the people in general, to give them an opportunity to come to Krishna consciousness. Actually, it doesn't directly say that, but it indicates it by context. And this is the purport that's repeated throughout Srila Prabhupada's purports. He inherited that mood from his spiritual master and from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So, more evidence about remembering the pure devotees of the Lord. I'm going to read you a verse and purport from the Beta Kirtan pastimes for food for thought. And this appears at Madhya 11.89. Raghava Pandit Inha Acharya Nandana Sriman Pandit Srikant Narayan. In this chapter, Raj Prachaparuja is standing at the top of a building, and Gopalacharya is naming all the devotees coming from Navadvip as they're just entering Puri. And Prachaparuja Maharaj is a recent convert. And he's hearing from Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Gopinath Acharya who these great devotees are. So they're naming them. Here's Raghava Pandit, here's Nandana Acharya, there are Sriman Pandit, and here are Srikant and Narayan. And Prabhupada writes the following in the purport. Narottam Das Thakur, honoring the personal associates of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, has sung as follows in Prarthana 13. Gaurang Gera Shangi Gane Nitya Siddha Karimani She Jaya Rajendra Sutapash. One who is intelligent understands that all the personal associates and devotees of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are ever liberated. This means that because they are always engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, they do not belong to this material world. One who is engaged in the Lord's devotional service 24 hours daily and never forgets the Lord is called Nitya Siddha. Srila Rupa Goswami confirms this statement. Iha yasya harir dasya karmana manasagira nikila syapyavastastu jivan mukta uchite. A person acting in the service of Krishna with body, mind, intelligence, and words is a liberated person, even within the material world, although he may be engaged in many so-called material activities. From Bhakti Samrita Sindhu. Prabhupada continues, a devotee is always thinking of how to better serve Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and how to broadcast his name, fame, and qualities throughout the world. One who is Nitya Siddha has no business other than broadcasting the glories of the Lord all over the world, according to his ability. Such people are already associates of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Therefore, Narottam Das Thakur says, Nitya Siddha Karimani. One should not think that because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was personally present 500 years ago, only his associates were liberated. Rather, Srila Narottam Das Thakur says that anyone is a Nitya Siddha if he acts on behalf of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by spreading the glories of the holy name of the Lord. We should respect those devotees preaching the glories of the Lord as Nitya Siddha and should not consider them conditioned. Mam chayo vyabhicharina bhakti yogina sevate sagunan samitityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Bhagavad Gita 14:26. One who has transcended the material modes of nature is said to be on the Brahman platform. This is also the platform of Nitya Siddha. The Nitya Siddha not only stays on the Brahman platform, but also works on that platform. Simply by accepting the associates of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Nitya Siddha, one can very easily go back home, back to Godhead. Repeating, simply by accepting the associates of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Nitya Siddha, one can very easily go back home, back to Godhead. And earlier in the purport, Prabhupada says, you shouldn't consider that one should not think that because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was personally present 500 years ago, only his associates were liberated. Rather, Srila Narottam Das Thakur says that anyone is a Nitya Siddha if he acts on Lord Chaitanya's behalf by spreading the glories of the holy name of the Lord. So this is a clear evidence of the importance of glorifying those devotees. For instance, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who have brought Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message to the modern world. 500 years ago, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced with his associates. He was surrounded by his parshadas, his eternal associates, after he left. Gradually, there were deviations in many combinations and permutations. In the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, in which the Lord's pastime of disappearing from the world, that is, Lord Krishna's disappearance from the world, has explained how Lord Krishna had concerns that the Yadu dynasty was so powerful that if he left them, after he left, then people would gravitate towards them because they were his family members, and there would be deviations. And therefore, without going into all the details, he arranged for their quick demise before he disappeared from the world. This is made much of by our acharyas, who also explain that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in other ways, had made sure that those who were, first of all, he didn't have descendants. Nityananda Prabhu didn't emphasize his descendants, although others did, and the Nityananda Vamsha became prominent at some point. That is, the descendants of the son of Lord Nityananda. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had allowed Mayavad to come in to cover over the people who had deviated from the path of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's a little complex to understand, but so's the world, and so are people. Nonetheless, it's mentioned by our acharyas that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had concerns about after he left, and those concerns were well founded because after the incarnation of the Lord leaves the world, then there's ways in which, by degrees, people go off in errant directions and then come up with a completely different philosophy. It doesn't resemble the mood and method of the founder or of the avatar, in this case, of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who had come to teach the Sankirtan movement. And after some time, the Sankirtan movement had become obscured. It was not seen in its original form. And just as Lord Krishna comes to revive the original, the Sanatan Dharma from time to time, yada yada hi dharmasya, etc. So similarly, he sends his associates from the spiritual world, Nitya Siddhas, who are enacting pastimes in the spiritual world. They come to the material world to revive the Lord's teachings and to show by example, as acharyas, how to take it up. So in the history of our Sankirtan movement, the teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had been perverted. There were several camps, over 10, different deviant groups who had taken up what they claimed to be Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's process, but each one of them had fatal defects. So Bhaktivinoda Thakura appeared in the world. And interestingly, acharyas, even associates of the Lord who come with him, oftentimes are not completely aware of who they are until they begin to manifest their powers. We see that even in Lord Krishna's pastimes, that many of those priyartam who had come with Lord Krishna, either devas or personal associates, had at some time realized, oh, yeah, maybe we are eternal associates of Krishna. And similarly, the associates of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came upon that revelation as well. The acharyas sometimes appear in ordinary circumstances. In fact, in Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's following, many of the eternal associates are born in apparently inauspicious places, inauspicious in the estimation of the Shastra. If they're not near a holy river, then it's not a great place. But our acharyas explain how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu does this, that is, allows his associates to be born in various places so that they're infiltrated into the various places of the world and they can have a systemic effect on the population. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, those who have followed his life or read his biography, see that he was born into a wealthy family. His father died early when he was around 11. At some time, they were in financial, even though his father was very wealthy, at some time they weren't wealthy. He learned his academics in an English medium and took on various positions as one who easily picked up languages. He picked up Farsi and Urdu and other languages very quickly. And his expertise was noted by employers, not the least of which was the government, who employed him as a judge. He was also stationed in Jagannath Puri and simultaneously in charge of the management of Jagannath Puri. That's not an easy temple president uh, engagement. You have to oversee a lot of offerings every day. And meanwhile, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his intellectual life, amongst other intellectuals of Bengal, was in discussion with others who, at that time, it was a interesting time, it's the time when the British still ruled India, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur and others, intellectuals of the time, were in discussion about a similar topic that the sages of Naimisharanya talked about. What's the highest good? How can people of the world attain uh, the highest good? And with the confluence of so many people who had come into India, uh, the Mughals, and then there was the British, who had basically usurped the country and the economy. Uh, there's there are many different ideas, philosophies, so forth. The British had some effect on India in the ways that they disparaged the philosophy of the Bhagavat and what to speak of Hinduism and so forth, and had been on a campaign to undermine the philosophy of the Vedic philosophies of India. And that at that time there were many different ideas. Some people, the natives of India, were estranged from the original culture. There were influences from Christianity, from Mohammedanism, and so forth, all at the same time. Of course, India is famous for that. They're able to syncretize all these things and keep going. Uh, so there was, who asked you? Siri. Um, I don't know what I said, but he gave me a reference. So there was this, nothing. I didn't ask you.
Dasa is from dogcase.com.
You're a witness. I didn't ask him anything. So there was an amongst the intelligentsia, there was a endeavor to find a universal philosophy that would satisfy everybody. Some indication of a philosophy called Brahmoism, which took a little of this and a little of that and mixed it up in a pot. And sometimes you see that. I've seen in Japan, there's a place, it's actually really popular. It's a huge temple out in the middle of in a small village out in the mountains where tens of thousands of people come every year, and they have their symbol outside their temple has every world religious symbol on it. They didn't leave anybody out. And they have some ideas of healing people and things like that. And people wear a special suit when they come there. It's wildly popular. And so this is another tendency of people to try to come up with some new religion that will fit everybody. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was in that conversation with others, and then he discovered the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Of course, I'm cutting out a lot of details, but one detail of him finding Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita was that it wasn't so easy to find at that time. We may take for granted that we can go on Amazon and get any book we want by tomorrow or even today. Um, but back then, books were rare. They had to be written by hand. And if they were printed, then you'd have to search them out. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur had gotten the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, and came back to that group as the first of the modern converts to the movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, presenting that actually this is the continuation of the philosophy of the Bhagavat through the modern incarnation of Krishna in the age of Kali, which is very clearly pointed out by our acharyas. And he brought that to bear and then began to proselytize for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In this way, he revived Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. He brought it back to the surface, brought it back to life, and envisioned then, and this was after he had studied the great philosophies, religious philosophies of the world, and saw in each of them, and you can find this in his writings, that there are meritorious ideas, and he speaks of them oftentimes with respect for their principles, not oftentimes, regularly. And then he presented Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Krishna and the savior of the world. So this was a shock to many of his intellectual friends, but he had come out at that point for his real mission in life to bring out the movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to the world. What's more, he then began to meet the pure devotees who are also always there, even when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement had not been extant. The pure devotees are always there. In fact, there's a statement somewhere in Shastra that says the world wouldn't hold together if they weren't. Because if there's not a pure devotee somewhere walking the earth or chanting, then I mean everyone's going to give up and collapse. There is a sustaining force when there's pure devotees on the planet. But as the Srimad Bhagavatam says, just like waterfalls, sometimes waterfalls pour forth profuse water, and at other times there's nothing. And so similarly, sometimes pure devotees are front and center and they're teaching the principles of the Bhagavat. And in other times, there are periods in which they are silent and they're doing their private bhajan. So all this came to bear when that is this pouring forth of the philosophy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that it had been practically underground, like a river that goes underground. It's down there, but you just can't access the water. But he brought it out. And therefore, he was noted by a famous editor of one of the most important religious publications of the time. Bhaktivinoda Thakura used to write for that publication, if I remember correctly, and the editor had deemed him the seventh Goswami, based on the fact that when Lord Krishna uh, left the world, then the Goswamis had been tasked by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to revive the holy places where he had performed his Leela and his philosophy. And the philosophy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of course, which gave access to Vrindavan and the philosophy of the Bhagavat. And after that had been obscured, then it came back again through Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who then was called the seventh Goswami, because he again revived Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's importance in the world, to say the least. And of course, we know he brought to light his actual birthplace in Mayapur, and then began to spread the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu all over the world to everybody. He wanted Western scholars, everybody to be able to know, to be able to read about the philosophy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, sent books to famous people around the world, Thoreau and Emerson, to universities and so forth, just like we're doing. Uh, we're following in the footsteps. And so um, Prabhupada showed deep spiritual deference towards Bhaktivinoda Thakur. As I've mentioned many times, but it's worth repeating, Prabhupada was on a morning walk in Mayapur circa 1974, and we were having kirtan in front of the mandir. The VIPs were walking with Prabhupada. You could see their profiles as they came closer and the kirtan got louder. And as they came near, someone had commented that, Prabhupada, you've fulfilled the vision of Bhaktivinoda Thakur by bringing all these Westerners and Europeans here. And then Prabhupada said, I may have brought him here, but it was only by the mercy of Bhaktivinoda Thakur they will be delivered. Now, by his mercy, he can deliver them. I'm paraphrasing. I put the actual quote up earlier on a conference somewhere. But that was Prabhupada's mood towards Bhaktivinoda Thakur, which led all the devotees to look into who is Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So he wrote many, many books and songs. And one collection of songs, as you well know, is the Sharanagati. And years ago, when we started a home program at our house here in Burlingame, which was one of the nicest things, he had a copy too. It was one of the most wonderful times of our life. Of course, I can't think of a time that hasn't been, but still, I mean, it was just such a joyous time. Everyone would come to our house once a week. I mean, we're poor isolated householders out in the middle of nowhere. I was just going to the airport every day by myself mostly. And then devotees would come over. And sometimes the kirtans were so intense that I'd look up to see if the roof was still on the building. And the most amazing thing was the neighbors never complained. I have good neighbor karma. But one thing that happened was I got a copy of this. This is not the original copy. The original copy has a matte cover and it looked a little older. I forget where I got it. Maybe I'd had it for a long time. But I said, let's read this during our evening programs. Those of you who were there at the time remember. We started reading just the translations to the song, and everybody in the room experienced a transformation. And after a few weeks of reading from this book, everyone said simultaneously, how do we get a copy? I have to have this. I have to bring it home. So I called Dasa, who's the translator and publisher of the book. And he said, sir, you're out of luck. They're all gone. Nary a book you will find anywhere. They're completely sold out. And the devotees were so enthusiastic that they put together the funds, which were considerable, to reprint the book. They were so eager to have it reprinted again. And I just want to give a little taste of why they were so excited by reading the first few songs that Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote. And they follow this pattern of describing how to surrender to Krishna. And the Sharanagati is accepting that which is favorable, rejecting things that are unfavorable, considering Krishna to be one's protector, maintainer, being always humble, and surrendering one's very soul to Krishna. Krishna, everything's yours, even my soul. I don't even belong to myself. I belong to you. And so here's how Bhaktivinoda Thakur opens the book with an introductory song. And I'm going to read the translation. Sri Chaitanya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu descended from the eternal spiritual world along with his personal associates.
Sorry, please mute yourself. You're not speaking.
Bengali. That came right at the right time. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu descended from the eternal spiritual world along with his personal associates and divine abode, incarnating in this temporary material world out of compassion for the fallen souls. In order to freely distribute the gift of ecstatic love of God, which is very difficult to obtain, he taught the path of Sharanagati, devotional surrender to the Supreme Lord. This Sharanagati is the very life of the true devotees. The six ways of surrender through Sharanagati are: 1. Dainya, humility; 2. Atma Nivedana, dedication of the self; 3. Goptritve Varna, acceptance of the Lord as one's maintainer; 4. The consciousness of Avashya Rakshibhe Krishna. Krishna will surely protect me, which is Vishvasa, faith in Krishna's Palana, protection. 5. Bhakti Anukul Matra Karyera Swikara, execution of only those acts favorable to pure devotion. And 6. Bhakti Pratikul Bhav Varjana Gikara, renunciation of conduct adverse to pure devotion. Sri Nanda Kumar, the youthful son of Nanda Maharaj, hears the prayers of anyone who takes refuge in him by this sixfold practice of surrender. Bhaktivinoda prostrates himself at the feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Sanatan Goswami, places a straw between his teeth, and clasps their lotus feet with his hands. Weeping and weeping, he tells them, I am certainly the lowest of men. Oh, please make me the worthiest by teaching me the ways of Sharanagati. How do you become the worthiest? By taking the path of Sharanagati, surrendering to Krishna. Now, here we go. He starts off with Dainya. Dainya means utter humility. And in the Bhagavatamrita, the author explains, or Narada Muni, speaking on behalf of the author, says that any advancement in devotional service is accompanied by dainya, an equal amount of dainya, meaning the more advanced one becomes, the more humble one feels. And this dainya, I love the sound of it, as it's described in the Bhagavatamrita as utter humility. It's not pretense, it's not an act, it's not intellectual. As it's described by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Sanatana Goswami when he tells about the 9 symptoms of bhava. One of the symptoms is that the person who's advancing devotional service sees him or herself more and more as being unworthy, even though the person is becoming more qualified. His dainya is described in more detail in the Bhagavatamrita, but actually here, through the pen of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, we're going to hear what it feels like. And this is what he brings to life for the devotees, is what it feels like to be advancing, to have advanced, or to be on the path of advancement and experiencing spiritual emotion within the heart. And you'll get it in these next couple of translations to the song. Are you ready? I'm going to read it.
Yes.
O Lord, I forgot you and came to this material world, where I have experienced a host of pains and sorrows. Now I approach your lotus feet and submit my tale of woe. While still bound up tightly in the unbearable confines of my mother's womb, O Lord, you once revealed yourself before me. Appearing only briefly, you then abandoned this poor servant of yours. At that moment I thought, after my birth I will worship you. But alas, after taking birth, I fell into the entangling network of worldly illusions. Thus I possessed not even a drop of true knowledge. As a dear son fondled in the laps of relatives, I passed my time smiling and laughing. The affection of my father and mother helped me to forget you still more, and I began to think that the material world was a very nice place. Day by day, I gradually grew into a young boy and began playing with other boys. Soon my powers of understanding emerged, so I diligently read and studied my school lessons every day. Proud of my accomplished education, later I traveled from place to place and earned much wealth, thereby maintaining my family with undivided attention. I forgot you, O Lord Hari. Now in old age, this Bhaktivinoda very sadly weeps. I failed to worship you, O Lord, and instead passed my days in vain. What will be my fate now? With great enthusiasm, I spent my time in the pleasures of mundane learning and never worshipped your lotus feet. O Lord, now you are my only shelter. Reading on and on, my hopes grew and grew, for I considered the acquisition of material knowledge to be life's true goal. How fruitless those hopes turned out to be, for all my knowledge proved feeble. Now I know that all such erudition is actually pure ignorance. All the so-called knowledge of this world is born of the flickering potency of your illusory energy. It is an impediment to the execution of devotional service to you. Indulgence in mundane knowledge verily makes an ass of the eternal soul by encouraging his infatuation with this temporary world. Here is one person who has been turned into such an ass, who for so long has carried on his back the useless burden of material existence. Now in my old age, for want of the power to enjoy, I find that nothing at all pleases me. Life has now become agony, for my so-called erudite knowledge has proven itself to be worthless ignorance. Material knowledge has now become a pointed shaft and has pierced my heart with the intolerable burning pain of ignorance. O Lord, there is no treasure worth seeking in this world other than your lotus feet. Bhaktivinoda abandons all his mundane knowledge and makes your lotus feet the sum and substance of his life. When I was young, I felt a boundless ambition for earning money. At that time, bearing in mind the codes of religion, I accepted the hand of a wife. Along with her, I set up a household and therein wasted so much of my time. Many sons and daughters were born, and my spirit was totally crushed. The burden of family life increased day by day, and under its weight, I felt my personal progress in life forcibly come to a halt. Old age came and beleaguered me on all sides, making my mind incessantly disturbed. Diseases troubled me. Constant anxiety has made me feverish, and my heart burns with every want. I see no way out of this predicament, for all is darkness. Now I am very much afraid. The current of this worldly river is strong and relentless. A frightening, gloomy death approaches. Finishing my worldly duties, I will worship you, O Lord. That hope is now fruitless as well. Now please hear me, O Lord. I am utterly helpless. Bhaktivinoda says, without your mercy, everything is lost. Please give me the shelter of your lotus feet. My life is ever given to sin. In it there is not a particle of good. I have caused others great anxiety and have troubled all souls. For the sake of my own enjoyment, I have never hesitated to perform sinful acts. Devoid of all compassion, I am concerned only with my selfish interests. Personally speaking, perpetually speaking lies, I become dejected upon seeing others happy, whereas the misery of others is a source of great delight for me. There are limitless material desires within the core of my heart. I am wrathful, fond of exhibiting arrogance, intoxicated by vanity, and bewildered by worldly affairs. I wear the cherished ornaments of envy and egoism. Ruined by laziness and sleep, I resist all pious deeds. Yet I am very enthusiastic to perform wicked acts. For the sake of worldly fame and reputation, I engage in the practice of deceitfulness. I am victimized by my own greed, being always lustful. A vile, wicked man such as this, rejected by godly people, is a constant offender, devoid of all good works, forever inclined towards evil. He is worn out and wasted by various miseries. Now in old age, deprived of all means of relief, thus humbled and poor, Bhaktivinoda submits his tale of grief at the feet of the Supreme Lord. One more. O Lord, please hear the story of my sadness. I drank the deadly poison of worldliness, pretending it was nectar, and now the sun is setting on the horizon of my life. I spent my childhood in play, my youth in academic pursuit, and in me there arose no sense of discrimination. In young manhood, I set up a household and settled down to the spell of material enjoyment, while my children and friends quickly multiplied. Old age soon arrived, and all joys consequently departed. Subjected to the torments of disease, I am troubled and weak. All my senses are feeble now, my body is racked and exhausted, and my spirits are downcast in the absence of former sense pleasures. Devoid of even a particle of enlightenment, cheated of the mellows of devotion, what help is there for me now? O Lord, you are the friend of the fallen. I am certainly fallen, the lowest of men. Please, therefore, in mercy, lift me to your lotus feet. Were you to judge me now, you would find no good qualities. Have mercy and judge me not. Cause me to drink the honey of your lotus feet and thereby deliver this Bhakti Vinod. It's a bit of a spiritual mystery how hearing of the pure devotees' utter humility it's so moving. In one sense, it's relishable. In the other sense, it gives this sense of longing to actually be a devotee. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, by his writings, by his songs, he brought to life the Sankirtan movement. He gave the details of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings in his various books. And you can see that he was writing for a modern audience, Jaiva Dharmas, novel-like, page-turner stories infused with the philosophy. He was reaching for that audience around the world. And this is what we've inherited. Now, the profound philosophy, but it's full of music. It's full of poetry. It's full of the real spiritual emotion that everyone feels is lacking. There's so much pretense in the world. People are nauseous. They reject religious process because so much falsity and hypocrisy. So when we hear the real thing coming from the heart of one who's completely surrendered to Krishna, then it goes right to the heart directly. Pratyakshavagaman dharmyam. There's no banging around in the head. It just hits you right in the heart. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur's songs are like that too. And of course, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he made practical the vision of Bhaktivinoda Thakur all over India. Noteworthy also, and so relishable when we go in parikrams, when we go to see Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj and remember how he was the Shiksha Guru of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. The song Nitai Nama Neche Namarhate, it commemorates the time that Bhaktivinoda Thakur first met Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj and heard him singing that and dancing in ecstasy, heard him singing the names of Lord Nityananda and declaring the mercy of Lord Nityananda. You never forget that when you meet a pure devotee and something goes right to your heart. Bhaktivinoda Thakur became dedicated to hearing from Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, who was Sarvabhauma, the chief of all the Vaishnavas. He resided in Vrindavan and Mayapur. So important to have advanced devotees. And then, of course, he was initiated also by Vipina Vihari Goswami, who was his Diksha Guru. Apparently gave more importance to Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, as he had given him the shiksha that Bhaktivinoda Thakur expanded upon to spread the movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Oh my God, it's 7:56. Let's just see if there's any reflections or comments. Sorry I went on so much.
Devotees, you can raise your hands if you have any questions.
I really did not know it was that late.
Or if there are none, then you can just unmute and ask.
Hansapriya.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dhanva Pranam, Jai Srila Prabhupada. All glories to Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And I just want to say that Thakur has this amazing pulling the acharyas are already some very special, but something about Bhaktivinoda Thakur, it just like bonds you right away. His bhajans, the way he's cry for Krishna, the way he describes, I think it's easy to relate. He makes it very practical for us to connect with him. He's just his bhajans are very personal and like, fortunately for us that he wasn't too long back, so it's kind of easy to understand him and his teachings. It kind of feels that connection of his mercy flowing eternally. And minute you sing his bhajan or minute you go to his birthplace, and some very special potency I feel.
Yeah, I
Special.
agree with you that the way he writes, his style of writing and presenting, it's very ecumenical and very appealing to the current audience, the way he writes. So yeah, very much so. And of course, all the great acharyas, well, at least many of the great acharyas have written songs that add something else to it. It's just the aesthetic of devotional service where there's music and there's bhajan and so forth, but it's all going straight to the heart is extremely important. Sukeshwari.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I was also going to talk about Bhaktivinoda Thakur's bhajans. I just feel my connection to him has been a lot of bhajans, and especially we've been singing in the summer camps every year, the Bhoga Arati. And then, so it is, I mean, it could be Bora Shikhar Kabar Gai or anything, any other bhajan. But his mood, you get to know about his mood so much more with the bhajans, and I'm so grateful. I remember getting the book a long time back. It's absolutely, I don't know a lot more about him, but his bhajans have really captivated, and it's just so amazing. Just wanted to comment on that. Thank you, Prabhupada.
Yeah, well, you're in luck then, because Prabhupada gave us several authors of bhajans that he said, stick to these. And one of them was Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And if all you did was that, you'd never run out of bhajan. That's for sure. Nor would you ever be disappointed, because as I like to say, every single one of them is a hit. Priya Kishori.
I will, Prabhu. I wanted to ask you how we can understand the inner mood of the acharyas, especially when they say things like, my heart is full of lies, or I have, some of these lower tendencies that sometimes we see in ourselves. But these acharyas, they're nityasiddhas, they come from Goloka, and they're very connected to Krishna. So do we assume that they may have had these tendencies, or they're just saying them in ways that we can relate to them and overcome them?
They're saying them in ways that we can appreciate. And there is a phenomenon that I referred to earlier in bhava. When the heart softens and one is experiencing mellows within the heart, there's a spiritual phenomenon, which sounds contradictory, of feeling oneself unqualified. And this is what is called dainya. Even though one's becoming more advanced and more qualified, out of this sense of deep humility, one feels that. So no, it's not that the pure devotee has these qualities or has had them. It's that there's a overwhelming sense of disqualification, even though one's becoming more advanced spiritually. And it's also didactic. I mean, it's not that Bhaktivinoda Thakur is making this up, his mood of surrender. And just for others, he actually has this deep sense of humility after, well, what is humility and what is the sense of disqualification? It's like I have no good qualities in myself. Pure devotee, as it is described elsewhere, sees everybody else with good qualities, but except for him. Sees everybody else engaged in devotional service except for himself. And so that's the paradox of it all. And what's more, it's when we hear it and we actually experience, like I can recognize that I do have that quality. It melts it by hearing about somebody exposing what we may have in our hearts and just saying it out loud. There's a way in which it's almost a kind of spiritual embarrassment. It's like, yeah, I have that. And it's a mystery how it simultaneously helps us to overcome that by revealing it. Dhanavari. Sukeshwar, your hand's still up. Dhanavari, go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Maharaj, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule and giving us the nectar and reading all these. Thank you so much. And like you said, Maharaj, another devotee just shared that I was feeling that so many things I could relate, like all these bad qualities, and I want to get better. And also, it's very nice, nicely like described by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And this is we got good opportunity. Thank you so much, Hare Krishna.
Well, that was sweet, Dhanavari. Thank you very much. I don't have a busy schedule, but thank you for saying such things. I'm just going to read a couple excerpts from Prabhupada's writing. I think we were supposed to end at 8, and it's late for a lot of devotees who get up super early.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, it is actually till 8:30, this Wednesday's class.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Then I'll feel free. Srila Prabhupada writes frequently about Bhaktivinoda Thakur. What's more, he quotes from his commentaries. And here are a few points that Prabhupada makes. We should be prepared to do anything and everything to please the Lord, even at the risk of violating the Vedic principles or ethical laws. That is the standard of love of Godhead. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur warns us in this connection that we should not mistakenly think that the idea of giving up everything implies the renunciation of duties necessary in relation to the body and mind. Even such duties are not sense gratification if they are undertaken in the spirit of service to Krishna. Next, he says in this verse, the words tomar prabhave, your influence, are very important. Unless one is spiritually advanced, he cannot influence an audience. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has sung Shuddha Bhakata Charana Renu Bhajana Anukul. Unless one associates with a pure devotee, he cannot be influenced to understand devotional service. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains in the Vedanta Sutra of Srila Vyasadeva, it is definitely stated that all cosmic manifestations result from transformations of various energies of the Lord. Shankaracharya, however, not accepting the energy of the Lord, thinks that it is the Lord who is transformed. He has taken many clear statements from the Vedic literature and twisted them to try to prove that if the Lord or the Absolute Truth were transformed, his oneness would be disturbed. Thus, he has accused Srila Vyasadeva of being mistaken. In developing his philosophy of monism, therefore, he has established Vivartavad, or the Mayavadi theory of illusion. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur warns against artificial displays of the bodily symptoms called Ashtika Sattvika Vikar. This is also another offense. One should seriously and sincerely continue to chant the Panchatattva names, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda. All these acharyas will bestow their causeless mercy upon a devotee and gradually purify his heart. When he is actually purified, automatically he will experience ecstasy in chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So the various quotations from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur that are woven throughout Srila Prabhupada's teachings remind us of the importance of the Sri Guru Parampara, and that the mood of pure devotional service, which is rare in the world, flows through the teachings of the great acharyas. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur has taken the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and made them practical. For instance, he mentions, and Prabhupada quotes in a purport, that there are different kinds of influences in this world. The association that we get, as Krishna mentions in the Bhagavad Gita, Purusha Prakritisto hi bhunkte prakriti jangunan, karanam gunosangosya sarasadyoni janmasu, is the key to our situation in this world. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives definition to the kinds of association that affect us. And he talks about how if we associate with those interested in karma, then we get a karma bij in our heart. That is a desire to try to position ourselves in the material world at all costs, somehow work hard to make sure that I elevate myself. Or Jnana bij, the way of speculating and coming to an impersonal understanding. That comes about by association with people who already have that. But then he talks about a kind of credit we can get by associating with pure devotees, which he calls Bhakti Unmukhi Sukriti. And by association with pure devotees, who are Nadanam, Najanam, Nasundarim, Kavitam Jagadisha Kamaye. They don't want anything of this world. They don't even want liberation. If one gets that, then that's the influence one feels within one's heart. So in delineating devotional service, Bhaktivinoda Thakura makes it very practical in the Chaitanya Shikshamrita, which he wrote. He talks about the gradual steps one must take in devotional service so as not to become waylaid and left behind. He compares advancement in bhakti to climbing a ladder. Quoting from Bhagavatam, Swe Swe Adhikarya Nishta Saguna Parikirtita, he mentions, it's from 11th canto, Krishna to Uddhava, that one should act according to one's capacity, present capacity. Don't try to imitate people who are more advanced than you. And this is a tendency either by noticing that somebody might get more praise if they're more advanced, and therefore there's a way of looking for shortcuts. And one also shouldn't be lazy about moving forward in devotional service. And then he gives the analogy of climbing a ladder. Bhaktivinoda Thakur does. And he says, you should put your foot on the rung of the ladder of devotional service. And once you feel that it's steadily situated there, then you can take another step. If you try to run up the ladder too quickly, then you can slip and fall, he says. And if you don't take the next step when you're capable of doing it, then he says your advancement may be distant. At least that's how it's translated in the Shikshamrita. So he gives very practical instructions. He's taken this, for instance, the writings of the Goswamis in some cases, and then given more commentary on them, like the Namamrita, Namashtakam by Rupa Goswami. Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives his own expanded understanding of those, like Nikila Shruti Mala Ratnamala Duti Nirajita Pada Pankajanta. And he talks about how if you come in to see the Shrutis personified performing Mangalartik, peek through the door, you can see that they're worshiping the tips of the toes of the lotus feet of the Lord. He follows the commentaries of Rupa Goswami and the poetry and so forth, and then brings it out to the modern world. And this was the mood that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur also imbibed from his father. On one side, guarding Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's legacy. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was fierce in distinguishing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings from the various apasampradayas, those who had changed the mood and method to suit their own whims. And that was inherited by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who saw the mood of his father to establish Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings and supremacy, and to point out the sections of the Bhagavatam that note the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was such a loyal follower of his Shiksha Guru father, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that he even had some dispute with his Diksha Guru considering Vipina Bihari Goswami unqualified to give chastisement or instruction to his father. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur also, in his writings, helped to assuage the various misunderstandings that people had adopted because of various influences from the Upper Sampradayas, but also from the British, who tried to, as I mentioned before, disparage the teachings of the Bhagavad. He was a very modern preacher. In his essays called the Bhagavad, I think it's called the Bhagavad, he gives a lot of ways to understand how one can accommodate the teachings of the Bhagavatam for the modern doubting mind. And what's more, for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he gave a seminar about how all ways of accepting Chaitanya Mahaprabhu can be beneficial for people at the different levels. Some people might consider him a historical figure and marvel at the things he had done, kind of a National Geographic approach. Say, yeah, this was some person of importance. And some others may say he was a saint of some kind. And then, of course, as we know from Bhagavatam and Karabhajana Muni pointing out who Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Chana avatar. And if we know from Chaitanya Charitamrita, the revealed scriptures, then there's those who understand that he's an avatar or that he's actually Swayam Bhagavan, Krishna himself. Bhaktivinoda Thakur delineates how all these levels of people who take an interest in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu all make advancement. And that's a kind of modern approach to preaching, to bring out how one may present in different ways to different audiences so that people can at least start to hear and understand the mood and mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Does anybody want to ask another question? Go ahead, Devavrata.
What are some principles which we can extract from Bhaktivinoda Thakur's life and example, which we can integrate into our own personal practice on a daily basis, and also just our overall projection for our career in Krishna consciousness?
What a great question. I will read a couple of the tenets that Bhaktivinoda Thakur personally adhered to. He says, birth after birth, let me be attached to the following. Come what may. 1, to my spiritual master. 2, to Lord Sri Gauranga. 3, to the topics of pure devotional service as instructed by him. 4, to the holy places of pilgrimage, which are all blooming with sanctity due to his performance of pastimes therein. 5, to my Diksha mantra. 6, to the holy name of Sri Hari. 7, to the beloved associates of the Lord. 8, to the holy days associated with Lord Hari. 9, to those persons who follow in the footsteps of Sri Rupa Goswami. And 10, to the scriptures enunciated by Srila Shukadeva Goswami. That's a good list of 10. And we can take that list, we can see how Prabhupada so expertly brought us a lifestyle that contains all those things, and we can reiterate it. It's not hard. Taking the basic lessons he has here, for instance, being attached to the spiritual master, means that I'm not whimsical. Spiritual masters, tasmad gurum prapadyeta jignasesh Jignasa Shreya Uttamam. Shabde Parijhanishnatam. He said, adhering to Shastra and espousing, follow the regulative principles. And everything should be backed up with pramanam. So follow the spiritual master. This is what should be attached. He says, birth after birth, let me be attached to the following, come what may. So be attached to your spiritual master. Be attached to Lord Sri Gauranga. You'll never go wrong there. Be attached to the topics of pure devotional service as instructed by him. Here's a nice list. You could just make that your focus. Read it every day. Here's another one. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, within the forest of Vrinda, which is gloriously rich in the treasure of Madhurya Ras, Sri Krishna, the personification of spiritual mellows, gives transcendental bliss to Sri Radhika, who is the topmost manifestation of his divine potencies and the personified form of the supreme mellow of love and separation. This same Lord Krishna is identical to the son of Mother Shachi, who resides in Gaudadesh, Bengal, and teaches the process for rendering his own devotional service. May this Sachinandana be my supreme master birth after birth. 3, let not renunciation be fit for my acceptance if it does not give rise to loving devotion. And let not knowledge appeal to me at all if it does not admit to the individuality of the Lord and the jivas. I have no desire at all to practice the eightfold yoga process. None of these are productive of the happiness of serving Lord Hari, such as his confidential worship is. Therefore, let such abundant confidential service to Sri Radha Krishna be mine. He left behind a treasure trove, but one thing I will bring up, which I'll echo what you sent me today, was the mood of Bhaktivinoda Thakur in expanding the Sankirtan movement, as is evident from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, was the mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that don't consider who's a fit or unfit candidate. It's a instruction and mood that we can emulate, and that is to dive into the Sankirtan movement. Find innovative ways to present to the people that we meet anywhere and everywhere, or especially at universities and especially in Davis, that will attract them and bring them into the practice of devotional service. And by that method of focusing one's mind on expanding the Sankirtan movement, which was the mood of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then we'll experience the mercy of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and the other great acharyas. It's undeniable. One's chanting becomes more intense, and one's desire to hear Shushrusho Shraddhanasya Vasudeva Kata Ruchi, one gets ruchi by serving the great souls. So that's also something that we're living as it's been passed down to us, the ways of adjusting constantly, if necessary, or when necessary, the ways that we present Krishna consciousness, innovating to try to get people to come into the practice of devotional service so they can be happy. There is no happiness in the material world. And that was the mood of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And then take his great love for all the practices of devotional service, the song Shuddha Bhakata Renu, which is very similar to that first set I read there, where he's relishing the various aspects of devotional service. Just make your life spiritually rich by taking all of those and going to the Dham, hearing and chanting, being attached to Lord Chaitanya and the spiritual master and so forth. Were any of those practical enough for a takeaway? Okay. Thank you for asking a question. Would anybody else like to ask a final question? I'd like to mention, okay, Malini, Please go ahead.
Prabhu, I don't have a question, Prabhu, but there was a first when you opened up this class, you mentioned something about Bhaktivinoda Thakur. You said that who has the vision to see people chanting and dancing in Mayapur, and the desire that everybody gets an opportunity to perform devotion service. That struck me so much because, as you mentioned, everybody is busy thinking of their own lives, their own comfort, their own plans for future. But who is thinking about doing good to other people? That was really really helpful, and hopefully that we can follow in his footsteps and think good for other people as well. Thank you for sharing that, Prabhu.
Thank you, Molly. It's so important. It's what we're doing by printing books. I mean, I met some people who are printing books. Recently, I was at the BBT meetings in Italy. There's actual book printers there. They're pretty absorbed. They're always thinking about how to print, how to get paper. Now, of course, we have electronic books too. They're expanding. And that's a preoccupation. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was preoccupied with that. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, totally. Prabhupada was. Nowadays, things are pretty much open. The world's still open for business. And this adherence to the practices that we just got a few minutes ago from Srila Prabhupada, from Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta is outrageously powerful. And so the ideas that we just got 2-3 minutes ago in geological time that think of the welfare of the society, try to affect change through distributing knowledge, prasadam, and in giving a sanctuary for people to come in is very important. And the mood of ever increasing, exciting goals to reach, just the way CEOs waste their time trying to make more money and get the bottom line going. And we're doing similar things, and hopefully we'll surpass some of those people in our attempt to increase the distribution of Srimad Bhagavatam. I mean, what would please Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur the most? Or he already said he wanted to see people of the world get an opportunity to read the Bhagavad. Prabhupada said it on the Jaltutu when he came over. So our focus of our community on this distribution and then giving sanctuary to people who read the books, this is right in line with Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And the idea of making pledges, I mean, people live in the world, they make money, and you don't know what to do with it. It just bugs you because you got all this money, and then you're just sitting there and you think, what should I do with it all? And the greatest benefit is to have a community where we always have this fire burning, sacred fire, where you can put it in the fire and say, there you go. I'm giving it for the highest benefit, which is to distribute the Bhagavatam. That satisfies the heart. Letting it sit in the bank and either appreciate or depreciate, it could do either one, or rot somewhere under the bed springs if you stuff it in your bed. It doesn't do any good. So I like these campaigns. They're very much in line, very practically situated with Bhaktivinoda Thakur to say we're going to distribute more Bhagavatams. I don't think if we went to see Bhaktivinoda Thakur and we told him what we were up to, that he would complain that we're trying to distribute more and more Bhagavatams. So that's why we do all these seemingly frenetic activities, like say, okay, last year we collected $44,800 for Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Disappearance Day. Let me tell you where it all started. I mean, this is historical evidence. This is a real poster. This is my main meditation on my wall. 2007, that says. That was the first time we celebrated Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Disappearance Day by saying that we're going to offer him the results of our book distribution. And it says here, deploy at least 64 devotees for book distribution, distribute at least 2,001 books, collect at least 4,000 Lakshmi points. Well, we've upped the ante a little bit. Now it's 45,000, right? So anyway, we collected the other night with two hangs tied behind our backs. We collected $38,000 to give to the distribution of Bhagavatam sets. Am I correct in that?
Prabhu, 33,000, Prabhu.
Oh, no. Okay. Well, we have to smash the 45. That means between now and Sunday, we need to smash the 45. We memorized the 34, and now we got to smash the 45. So that means a lot of people each doing a little bit, and you can pledge and get rid of whatever's in your mattress, take it out. And any of the huge stacks of cash that are burning a hole in your mind because they're like, what am I going to do with all this? Donate it for Bhagavatam sets. They'll go all over the world. And don't listen to anybody who tells you that it's a waste of time, because it's the most worthy of all activities. Printing books and distributing is the heart and soul of our acharyas. And anybody who says anything different has lost their way somehow. That's why we celebrate these disappearance days and appearance days and remember what was the mood and method. What did they say? And we try to follow in the footsteps. We try to please them. So it's definitely pleasing to Bhaktivinoda Thakur. We should distribute more Bhagavatam sets, and you could put it on your what do we depends on the little box of ashes for when you die. The number of Bhagavatam sets you did in one lifetime. Okay, so we're going to be putting out some notices for pledging. Did you put that video out, or did it not turn out?
Yes, Prabhu, we put this morning already.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Mm.
Anyway, we're going to shout it from the rooftops. Everyone should help distribute Bhagavatams and do the best you can. We got to smash the 45. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Shri Panchatattva, Shri Shri Radhamanan Mohan, Shri Shri Lakshmi Nrsingadev, Shri Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. First of all, please forgive me for falling way short and glorifying you. Second of all, if you so desire, please empower us to be steeped in Srimad Bhagavatam, to be adherent to the Guru Parampara, to consider Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu our life and soul. Please let us be absorbed in going to the Holy Dham. Please empower us to expand the Sankirtan movement in ways that will make the demigods dance in ecstasy, shower flowers, and talk to all their friends about it. And please let us fulfill your desire to see everybody in the world come under the banner of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, chanting, dancing, and feasting together and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone agrees with this prayer in whole or in part. Please unmute and say, Jai Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur.
Jai
Jai Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur.
Jai.
Jai Srila Kripasinabhaya Patitanam Vaishnavibhyo. Thank you, everybody. It was really nice. It reminded me of the old days.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna,
Thank you.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.